Hey there, it is Lantern, bringing once again zoo matchup analysis. Once more, my ever continuing quest to update the zoo primer with all techs and tricks possible so that you can play zoo right away the minute you see it, so that you can support my love of zoo by beating people's ass. I've come with another matchup analysis. This one specifically is Twin. Now, this one, I gotta admit, before I even go into it, this is the best Twin game I have not ever had, but that I have been able to get on recording, because it's it pretty much shows two different ways that you can beat Twin. A lot of people have trouble with Grixis Twin or just Twin in general, and they go into the zoo thread saying like, how do I beat the Twin deck? You gotta outsmart your Twin deck. Just because someone's playing blue does not necessarily mean they are smarter than you. It's a common misconception that a lot of Magic players have, that aggro is dumb, and that the blue color is the smartest of all colors, and that the Naya color combination is like the dumbest, brutest kind of people possible. I will admit that I am definitely a Naya player and that I'm very aggressive, but that doesn't mean that I am not a smart person. And because of this, it shows two different ways that you can beat a Twin deck, which is fantastic. It just goes to show, like, there's several different ways you can beat a Twin deck. In fact, if you are in fact good at zoo, a lot of people when they first start doing zoo can't beat the Twin deck because they just are bumping their head against it and they can't figure out why. Twin is actually a very, very good matchup for zoo. Anything Grixis, anything Twin, anything Delver, anything Control, if you are a good zoo player, is almost a free win for you. But this one specifically was a very, very easy. I outpaced him, I knew what I was doing, and I was able to win. Now, so what is Splinter Twin combo before I even go into the match? He doesn't ever combo off during these games. I don't let him. Therefore, you don't get to see it in action, but it is taking a card either called Deceiver Exarch, or you are taking a oh god, what is it called? Pestermite, of course. I'm brain farting. It's taking either of these two cards and adding on generally just Splinter Twin nowadays. They've cut all Kiki Jikis, but yes, Kiki Jiki, the Mirror Breaker, is sometimes maybe one of in the sideboard or one of in the deck. And what that does is together it makes a million copies by saying Deceiver Exarch literally says when this creature comes into the battlefield, choose one, either untap a target permanent you control or tap down a target permanent that the opponent controls. It's a little bit different than Splintermite. Splintermite just allows you to untap or tap target permanent, so it can be redirected by like Spellskite. That's one of the very few things. The big difference is Deceiver Exarch is a 1/4, and these Pestermite is a 2/1 flying. 2/1 flying is better when they're being a tempo deck and they're flying over your creatures. Deceiver Exarch can be a wall for us, and that's why Deceiver Exarch is a little harder to deal with. Also, it can't be lightning bolted out, which is the big thing. So you're gonna have to make it a lot of worser Twin players will block instead of tapping or do a tap down a creature and block to try to get the minimize the most amount of damage that we're dealing. If a smarter twin, you're playing against a smart Twin player, he'll usually just tap down a creature you control and then let the damage go through if he's got the win, rather than go for just like minimizing damage for no specific reason other than I guess it feels good, because we can take our creature plus a bolt and kill it. So that's one of the reasons why you have to connect sometimes with it. Moving along, this is the deck that I'm running. I hope you guys, I've left it up here unlike last time, so that way you can take a peek at the names if you needed to. Right, I forgot to for the other half of it. Right, and then of course Splinter Twin says enchant target creature. It's an aura. It gains the ability put a target token that is a copy of that creature into the play with haste. Well, I don't know why Magic Online's doing that, but sure. So it puts into a creature with haste into play, and using that you can untap and make a million different versions of that card. So let's go ahead and just play this out now. Just explain what I'm doing here. Now, to keep in mind, Twin is a deck that you don't want them to combo out. If they decide to combo, you will lose the game. Unless you're prepared for it, aptly prepared for it. It's one of the reasons why we have like a lot of Qasali Pride Mages in it, but generally Qasali Pride Mage is valued a little less if we don't know if it's Splinter Twin. So like we'll either lose our Pride Mage to a bolt or we just won't cast it in time. So we got to try to not let them combo. We got to try to maybe play some mind games with them, not to say that we have the ability to like a Path to Exile or something so that they can't combo. But you also, at the same token, need to be aggressive. So my best advice if you're ever playing against Twin is to recognize whether or not you can out-aggro them. And you have to say, look, if you have the combo, I'm going to lose regardless. Like, there's just no way I can stop your combo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put as much pressure onto the field as possible. And if you don't have the combo, you will lose the game. Because if they don't have the combo and they're not being combo deck, then they're a tempo deck. And we destroy tempo decks. So that's why Twin is actually kind of in our favor. So I opt to just, get myself a Temple Garden. My main reason for getting Temple Garden is just I got white over here that I'm going to need to do. I've got red in my hand. This version of the deck, it only uses one red, like, card, really, in the main deck. And when I draw, so I'm thinking about what I'm going to play on turn 2, and I'm either going to play the Pride Mage, which is what I'm leaning towards, or the Scavenging Ooze. Sometimes I'll rush out the Scavenging Ooze, just so that way if they don't have a removal spell, I just start eating up their graveyard if they're a blue deck, because that Delve is super important for them. When I draw the Tarmogoyf, I figure he might be Delver, because that's generally the more popular Grixis deck. And I decide to go for the Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf is probably the correct play regardless, because this deck still plays bolts and things to kill off stuff. So Tarmogoyf is still probably the correct call here. And then I'd follow it up with my Pride Mage. So when I draw the Noctowl, this is a pretty clear thing that I'm going to go for a attack. And I'm mostly putting the Pride Mage out there for Exalted purposes. I still think this guy might be Grixis Control or Grixis Delver. I don't know, he's Twin, but I have to put this out before he has a chance to counter it, 1, and 2, be able to start, bolting stuff down. I need to start putting in damage. I'm going to put the Noctowl out here. I'm going to be honest with you, I made a mistake. I should have casted the Qasali Pride Mage with the Sacred Foundry before I did anything else. There's been a lot of Blood Moon online lately, so I was just kind of scared of that. But that was a mistake because when I put out my my Wild Noctowl, it's 2/2, and it could easily have gotten Kolagun commanded and killed, which would suck if that just happened to that. However, it's obviously not what's going to happen because turns out they are on Twin. I didn't know that until just about now. I find out they're on Twin. But what I do to make up for my mistake, because I know it's a mistake, is immediately put the Sacred Foundry out. If this guy was Control, then I would have been up Schitt's Creek if I put out a fetch land and then cracked to get to a Sacred Foundry, because then they would have just bolted it down. They would have Koligan commanded it down before the land came into play. So I just went ahead and immediately put this in there. I decided to take the damage because I was still pretty high up on life as well. Mostly because, again, if he was controlled, then I would use this mana plus a green to put my Scavenging Ooze in and just start eating everything that's in his graveyard. Even if he bolts my Ooze, I'm ahead then at that point because I'm not letting him have 2 cards in his graveyard for flashback shenanigans or for delve shenanigans. So that's my reasoning for doing it specifically there, for that order of play that I did. And I just attack all out, wait to see if he takes damage. After I see him take the damage, I realize, oh, this guy is maybe Twin. Because it's like, if he's not valuing his life that much, the only deck that would do that would be the one that would tap, cast a Splinter Twin, and then, or cast a Deceiver Exarch, flash it in there, and then on his turn put Splinter Twin and win the game. That's the only time, and that's the oops I win combo that all Zoo players hate. But then I had like a minute of panic, and then I remembered that I had the Qasali Pride Mage, so he'd have to kill off Qasali Pride Mage before he did any of that stuff, and he might be freaking out because of the way that I was keeping my mana open for things like Dramoka's Command, which it's known that our deck will play a Dramoka's Command, or even things like Vines of Astwood. I don't know why we'd have Vines of Astwood main, but some decks do. Some like the Gruul aggro decks do. And maybe they were worried about that. So they end up playing they flash into Deceiver Exarch, and they go for this. And now I'm thinking, what are you trying to do? Tap down this. I mean, you can tap this down. I guess you're worried about a bolt happening. But when they let the thing go through, the reason why I didn't put Scavenging Ooze out there was because I did not want to. I didn't want it to get killed, and I figured he's probably got some kind of kill card. This maybe I thought it was a very high chance that Damnation was coming out if in fact he is a a Grixis control. Sometimes they pretend, like, you gotta know, Twin sometimes tries to pretend they are Grixis control or they are Delver for a little bit before they reveal that they are Twin, and that's what they're gonna try to kill you out. So it wasn't until I saw the Twin that I knew that it was that. And I actually think I still made the right call, even though I ended up having to deal with a Tasigur coming out now. Because I didn't eat stuff with my Scavenging Ooze. But the fact that he couldn't tap down all my stuff, and I could still blow up a Splinter Twin. I have enough pressure on the board that it should be fine. To note his, it's worth noting that his Tasigur emptied graveyards out and left my Goyf as a 1/2. But I figured I took a risky play here, but it paid off. I attacked with the Pride Mage. My figuring was if he decides to value his Deceiver Exarch and is afraid to block with it, then he's only going to block one of my creatures. And if he blocks my Pride Mage, that's fine, because I'll still get in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage because of the Lightning Bolt thing, and then 3 more damage. Now, I don't know how I'd get that last point of damage in there, but the real reasoning why I decided to swing with my Pride Mage is if he had Twin, he would have casted it. There was no reason for him, I mean, aside from to put out a blocker, there's no reason for him not to try to put out a Twin to on this Deceiver Exarch. If he put the Deceiver Exarch and I blew it up beforehand, cool, I'm down one creature. He can still block. He can still block pretty clearly on the Tarmogoyf, and that would be fine. There was still a bunch of things, but I realized that I had a window of aggression here, and I had to pull it, especially after drawing this bolt, and especially since things would die, and I would put Scavenging Ooze, and I would just eat my stuff. So he didn't have Twin. It's pretty clear in my head that he did not have Twin at that point. He only had a Tasigur, and that was his out. So with that in mind, I knew he was going to block, and he was probably also going to block with his Twin. And if he decided to block any way he decided to block with his Tasigur, I could bolt it out, and it would still leave me with 2 creatures to beat face with. One of those creatures is going to deal damage, probably most likely the Goyf, because that would deal the least amount of damage. And I get 2 in, he would drop down to 7. I could eat stuff with my Scavenging Ooze then, and then kill him off of it. Now, you got to bear in mind, again, like I was saying, when you play Twin, you have to realize whether or not you should go for the kill and be aggressive, or whether you should play defensive and try to play a little more interacty with the Twin. Here, I knew that playing more, I made the very, very, very educated guess that he didn't have the Twin, and that even though this might be suicide, I would need to pull this off in order to win the game further down the road, if that's clear for everyone. So he ends up going for the block this way, and his reasoning to block with the Tarmogoyf here is, I guess he was worried that I was gonna, I don't know, kill a creature and the Tarmogoyf was gonna be a 3 power, so that way this block would make the most sense then, which it does. But then it also pulls it away from my Qasali Pride Mage, which again is another reasons why I was willing to attack in there, because I very highly doubted my Qasali Pride Mage was going to die. I opt to bolt before damage is done. Not always what you want to do, but this guy's tapped down, so it's not like it's going to matter all that much. And it will grow my Goyf by 2. I don't know how, some crazy chance I would be able to grow my Goyf, another 2 more, but it's just good practice for what it's worth. Because the Goyf is a static effect, so it now becomes a 2/3 rather than being a 1/2. The other end is, I don't know, if he had a gut shot or something, it would be definitely more worth doing that. Although gut shot is an instant and it would pump it regardless, so I don't know. I'm just making stuff up over here. It's good. It's good policy. So I opt to do that. I let that go in the graveyard. I put the Scavenging Ooze in play, and I decide to not use it right away. My reasoning for not using it right away was I wanted him to waste a Kolaghan's Command. I do make a mistake here again. I'm not going to say I'm free of mistakes. I should have tapped this forest and this plains to put out the Scavenging Ooze. I should have done that very clearly, and then I would have had an extra forest to deal with. I had 3 lands then, and I could have used that 3rd land to eat the Tasker, so that way he couldn't even revive it with a Kolaghan's Command. And then I would still have 2 mana for whatever reason if I needed to do anything weird with the 2 mana. Something gets tapped down. I don't know how that would happen, but if something like that happened, I would still be able to Qasali Pridemage out a Splinter Twin. So that was a mistake on my end. I still make it up, though, towards the end. He ends up Splinter Twinning. Now, here's something very, very important I immediately did upon casting Splinter Twin. I added a stop in my main. In his main. Because he's in a weird situation here. He can either choose to try to combo off, like, I'm not going to know how to stop the Splinter Twin. Now, to be clear how to stop the Splinter Twin, because it matters when you're in an official tournament. If you cast a Splinter Twin, it resolves, I'm going to now change a phase, I'm going to blow up your Splinter Twin, he will combo out and kill you. You need to make sure that they need to tap first. They go tap. Token of Splinter Twin comes in. His ability is now on the stack, targeting my Deceiver Exarch. That's when you say, stop it right there. Blow up your Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin then, because this is tapped down, he can't make any more copies. Splinter Twin is, Deceiver Exarch is tapped. Splinter Twin dies, goes to the graveyard. Then his trigger resolves, his Deceiver Exarch untaps, and what he's left with is a 1/4 Deceiver Exarch and a 1/4 Deceiver Exarch token with haste. And that's it. So, there's also another tricky little thing on the Splinter Twin that people don't always recognize. It's the word next. Put a token into the battlefield that is a copy of this creature. That token has haste. Exile at the beginning of next end step. If he decides to do this during his end step, then on my turn, there's still a million twins. Because his end step's not the next end step when he does it in his end step. My end step is. That's important. That's the reason why I decided to pop the thing at main, and then go, like you're going to see here. Cool. During your main, I'm going to go ahead and kill your Splinter Twin. Because I know what he's trying to do is make a million copies of Splinter Twin to block when I attack. And then when he blocks when I attack, then all my creatures will die. Or at worst, he makes 2 copies, or 1 copy of Splinter Twin. He does it, and then I pop up the twin, it goes to the graveyard, but then he has a token and a blocker, and he can block both of these creatures very, very easily and not die, and buy himself an extra turn to then go, alright, next turn I draw a Splinter Twin, I kill you. So that's why I did it right then and there. It was very, very, very important that I did not let him have his blockers, because I had a clock. Again, maybe if you didn't realize, the swing up beforehand now is going to put pressure on him. At this point, because of the way that this works, I have a 4/5 Goyf, and I make my Scavenging Ooze a 3/3. 4 + 3 is 7. He's got it, unless he blocks here, he will die. He has a mana to do something with if he's got something with it. I honestly don't believe he has anything with it, and at least not before sideboard. So I'm going to go ahead and go out of my way to be like, alright, look, I've got lethal here. I'm not going to pull any tricks on you. You got to block. If he decides to block here, his Deceiver Exarch dies. If he decides to block here, his Deceiver Exarch still dies, because I've got a Qasali Pridemage in my graveyard now, as well as a Wild Noctowl. They'll do 4 damage. It's not like I'm going to lose anything. And so that's what I end up doing, is I go, alright, what are you going to do? He's going to block. I go, okay, fine, I'm going to use my thing and make us a 4/4 and kill this. The reasoning why this is fine then for me then to overextend at this point, although it's still debatable whether that's wrong or not, because I end up putting the Luxodon Smiter, and you can't see it on my time, but I do take about 2 minutes to figure out if I want to put this Luxodon Smiter out into play or not after this guy dies, is because there won't be a there won't be a Deceiver Exarch anymore on the field. He can't cast one flashed in there. He doesn't have 7 mana, which is 3 mana plus 4 for the Splinter Twin to instant kill me, death, you know. So I know that I'm safe. If he has a Damnation to wipe my board, that sucks. But I will top deck something else, and he still won't be able to combo kill me right away. So that's fine. But if he does have another Splinter Twin, or he has a Pestermite, he can tap down one of my creatures, and then block, and then go for the win with Splinter Twin. That's possible. So it would be better for me next turn, not this turn, next turn, to have 3 creatures that any one of those 3 creatures will kill him at that point, because he'll be at 3 life. Or I draw a Bolt to put out the Luxodon Smiter and threaten him there, because he had more outs in that respect than the other respect. And he doesn't have the out. He realizes that he can't tap my stuff down. There's no way that he can win here. Even if he were to play one, he'd have to have 2 Deceiver Exarch to stay alive, and then one of them would still need to die. It would still, and then he would still need to untap, and there's like a bunch of stuff that goes there. So I did draw a couple cards after this just to make sure that I had something. My next card on my top was Bolt, so I would have won the game regardless. Alright, so I know it took forever on this route, but that's how you win with interaction. Now let's talk about some of the things that they're going to sideboard against you. They're going to sideboard occasionally, less so now that Mellor's company is, it's not Mellor's pod. So they'll have things like Anger of the Gods, Pyroclasm occasionally, Flame Slash, Threads of Disloyalty, Kranos, God of Storms, if they believe they got to become a pure control deck to beat you. I don't know if that's a good idea, but that's something they do. But the biggest one that they're going to try to side in against you, aside from maybe Spell Skite, if they decide to go more combo-oriented, is Blood Moon. They're going to side in Blood Moon against you. And Blood Moon against you is fine. You just need to make sure you're not caught unawares with it. My rule of thumb is anytime I play a Grixis deck in general, what I do is I go ahead and I just start cracking for basics. This specific version of Zoo uses a lot less red than most decks do, so I make sure just to go out of my way with basics, and if he decides to Blood Moon me at any point in time, I will get a red source. It's not like I won't, but I'd rather have 2 forests and a plains in play with a red source than 3 red sources and a plains. It's just not good etiquette. So against rule of thumb against them, I'm just always wary about Blood Moon. I don't keep that hand in an instant because all it was a bunch of creatures and no interactivity, and sometimes I'll keep a hand like that too. If I'm like, alright, well, I'm just going to out-aggro you. I'll do it. I'll keep that hand. But I didn't have the mana to support it, so I had another tap to come into play, tapped mana. To quickly jump back into my collection here, pop into Zoo-Main. I know, it's like Zoo, Belcher, Shamanism, Red Deck wins. What did I side in against them? I sided in Jermalka's Command. I sided in Thalia's. That's all I sided in. I just sided in these 4 cards. Sometimes you consider bringing in your own Magnus of the Moon. Sometimes you don't consider it. It depends on how I feel that game went. That game was pretty blue-black rather than red. But I decided, I don't need it. Jermalka's Command would be a good card to have because it would let me maybe kill a twin while simultaneously kill a Deceiver Exarch. Who knows? Or stop a Bolt and kill a twin. Like these are all things that could happen. Thalia is very good because Thalia will delay them a turn. If you look at the actual deck of Splinter Twin, I encourage you to look at this before you go play your Splinter Twin decks. Their deck sucks if you just add 1 mana cost to most of their spells. They have a Snapcaster, but bear in mind, Snapcaster is just to get flashback. It's not very good on its own, It just has like an Ambush Viper. So Snapcaster, if you have a Thalia out, stops Snapcaster from being a 3 mana card and turns it into a 4 to 5 mana card. If they're doing stuff with Kolaghan's Command, suddenly it becomes like a what is it, a fucking 7 mana card, which is ridiculously overpriced. Not 7 mana, sorry, 6 mana. They occasionally have Vidilian Click, not always, but occasionally have it as their creature base. And then they have, of course, their twins. Their Deceiver Exarch or their Pestermites. But it stops Twin for a turn, makes Twin a turn 5 play, which is great because normally they try to kill you on turn 4 and their life is super low. So if you just delay them a turn, but like a lot of stuff, Dispel, Remans, Mana Leaks, even Serum Vision, Lightning Bolt, Cryptic Commands become basically uncastable, Spell Snares turn into really horrible Mana Leaks, Electrolyzes are awful, Kolaghan's Command is awful. A lot of the cards are terrible if you just add 1 mana to it, so Thalia does a good job here, and what's in my hand? Oh, a Thalia. So we just hit play, and I know when I keep, this is a keepable hand. I've got a Thalia to delay them. That's going to be the first thing that comes out because I value the Qasali Pride Mage more, and also Qasali Pride Mage will do more damage. With Noble Hierarch, it'll do 5 damage. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cast the Noble Hierarch. That's going to be my first turn 1 play. And I opt to get a Temple Garden here, is my main reasoning. I want him to not know that I have a basic in my hand and that I have access to another basic in my hand. So if he decides to start getting basics himself to not get Blood Mooned out, it actually might hurt him more than hurt me. Because with a Noble Hierarch and access to 2 basics, I can pretty much cast everything I want. Plus my hand's going to be empty in just a little bit. So if he decides to be picky, well then suddenly he can't cast Serum Visions, follow it up with Serum Visions, and then follow it up with the Bolt that he found. You know, it's not going to be that easily possible. I'm going to put my Noble Hierarch out there. Once I see my Noble Hierarch get bolted before I even untap, it either means he's afraid of a 3-mana card, which if he's afraid of a 3-mana card, that means he doesn't have the twin combo, because he wouldn't be afraid of a Knight of the Reliquary. I don't know why I was brain farting on names. Knight of the Reliquary if that happened. But if he... The other reason why that could be is because he could be highly valuing the Blood Moon. Now, he did put a basic island out there first. And I'm like, that's what he's trying to do, is fucking Blood Moon me out. I can't risk now not cracking this for a Plains. But with Thalia casting it, I'm going to be able to cast Thalia. It's going to turn that Blood Moon into a horrible moon. It's going to be a turn 4 play. He should be winning by the game. I see he misses a mana there, and I go, alright, time to turn pedal to the metal here. And I decide to go full on out here. It's not like he's going to put a Blood Moon out there next turn. Even if he kills my Thalia and then puts a Blood Moon out there, I still have it out because of Qasali Pride Mage. I have this in my hand. I'm also leaving this in my hand if it's not clear why I'm leaving this in my hand, because if he decides to Blood Moon me, he wastes a turn, and I get to then beat him down harder for a turn, 2 turns of beatdown. And I've got the... And not only that, I've got a Plains out, and if he Blood Moons me, he can't even bolt my... Or Kolaghan Commands, any 2 Electrolyze my Wild Noctowl, because it'll never be a 2-2 or a 1-1. It'll always be a 3-3. And that Thalia is just gonna make things way worse for him. He ends up finding the 3rd land and calls it a day. I go, all right. I'm a little sad because in my hand I have a ton of just collected companies, and I'm like, oh, I wish my Thalia would die. Because if my Thalia would die here, then I could start collecting company, and there's no way he's gonna win the game after I start collecting company. But you know what? It's a good problem to have, is be like, oh, one of my cards that's stopping him from doing everything that he wants to do currently, because that's what it is. It's this Thalia is pulling a lot of work right now. I can't cast my collected company. That's fine. I'll draw a basic eventually, and I'll or just any land eventually, and I'll do it. I decide when I see this come out, because he decides to instant speed tap down my my Noctowl. I think he was trying to set me up for a 2-for-1 here, where he was going to instant speed tap down my Noctowl, then block my Qasali Pride Mage, then put down a get a land, put it down, put down another Deceiver Exarch, block something, whatever. And since I don't have this Pride Mage, it won't stop the turn 6 Splinter Twin. And I see right through that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to let my Qasali Pride Mage die right now. If anything's going to die, I hope it's this guy, so end in turn of your turn, I can go ahead and just collect a company and then swing for the win. So I see right through that. He's either going to let this go because he's valuing his Pestermite, which would let me know that he has a Splinter Twin in hand, or he's going to block here. And if he blocks here, that's fine with me too. It's going to Save the, it's going to just deal damage to him, which I'm okay with as well. I mean, raw damage is raw damage. He decides not to block. This is a clear, pretty big indicator that he does, in fact, have the Splinter Twin in hand, but because of the way that I attacked and because of the way that these two problem creatures I have out, he's going to need to drop a land and double bolts. That's his only out. Or not even, yeah, he could just drop a land, bolt my Thalia. He doesn't even need to drop a land. He could bolt my Thalia with 2 mana and then bolt my Quasali Primate, but he needs to do something crazy like that in order to pull off this win. Now I'm just way ahead of him. I draw the next cards because he's like, all right, this guy's just way too ahead of me and I'm not going to win the game. Because next turn I'm going to attack the same way again. He's either going to tap one of my dudes down and risk losing something, or double block, and my Thalia can't kill a Deceiver Exarch, so it kills off my Thalia, and then I go ahead. And then at that point, I'd wait until the end of his turn. He can't Splinter Twin off with Quasali Pride Mage in play, and then I would just end the turn, collect a company. Now, what I did specifically after that, because I was just like, yeah, I got to figure out what's going on so I can tell you guys what happened later on. I made sure to start hitting draw card, which I can't do right now. And the next cards that I was going to draw was going to be things like, I think I said, yeah, I was going to choose a Scavenging Ooze and another Quasali Pride Mage, even though I had option to get a Knight of the Reliquary, who would have been a 6/6 or whatever, 5/5. And the reason why is just doubling down on this Pride Mage, and then starts eating his Serum Visions, not letting him have a chance to do anything. Get rid of removal with Snapcaster with that Lightning Bolt. I'd be narrowing down his choices dramatically, and it would eventually win me the game. Plus, I had a second Collected Company in hand at that point. So with those guys in play, I could further push off him from being able to combo off and still be just as aggressive, and then use Collected Company as not even a tutor spell, but as an aggressive card just to put more stuff in my library out into play, and then just keep swinging for the win. So this was a very aggressive way. So like I said, there's two different ways. You can play a little bit more interactivity, or you can just start playing all-in aggression. I was playing on the second end, all-in aggression. However, because of the Thalia and the Quasali Pride Mage, who, by the way, mind you, did not quote-unquote interact with the opponent, I was being just proactive against them. That's totally different. Allowed me to win the game. So with those proactive cards, I could still be aggressive and not have to worry about it. That's what Zoo wants to do in sideboard, if humanly possible. Is Zoo doesn't really like interactivity. It's okay with it. It likes interactivity as long as it comes out positive for us. Like, for example, okay, you're going to go ahead and gain 6 life. Yeah, about that Collected Command, or Artarka's Command, you can't gain any life, I'd bolt you in the face. Like, that's the interactivity we're down with, you know? But Thalia is one of those examples of that proactive card that just allows you to be aggressive as hell, and still put forward damage. So this should be a good example for anyone who wants to know how to beat the twin matchup. This one is the most latest twin matchup too, for 2015. It's September. It's August 26th. Anyways, let me go ahead and also just like at the end of all my videos, I like to sort this by mana cost and go through my collection here. Now, remember, I'm going to say this pretty much every time I do this video. My collection is not every single Zoo card humanly possible. My collection in paper is a lot more, pretty much every Zoo card humanly possible in Modern. But I got to stress that this isn't every Zoo card humanly possible. However, it is a great deal of them. Some more niche stuff like Thruns, I only have like 1 copy of, or 2 copies of. I even Voice of Resurgence, I think I only have 1 copy of. So let's go over the cards that are good in the twin matchup. Now, cards that are good in the twin matchup, manlands can be good. Stuff like Raging Ravine, Stirring Wildwood is actually probably, well, they're both fine. And Horizon Canopy draws you into a card to see if you can find a way to answer their twin. And Treetop Village are good enough cards. Sometimes the twin decides to go in a more mid-range Jundish kind of route, where they just try to 1-for-1 trade you until they get a combo and win with it. If that's sort of the twin that you're facing against, which we haven't seen in a while, Tarmo Twin is like very close to what that is, then Raging Ravine is better because it allows you to keep that aggression going. If you are playing against a more reactive twin, then Stirring Wildwood's better, and it's not even because of the reach, it's because of the 4 toughness butt. It doesn't die to Lightning Bolt. It also, if the just twin players el stupido, they don't realize, a lot of people sometimes forget that Stirring Wildwood has reach and can block flyers, so they might play into that. I wouldn't count on it though. The Treetop Village is just when you're down on dudes and you need to get in last bits of damage. If you're swinging with the Treetop Village against a twin, you either should be winning the next turn or you are probably going to lose. That's the way that whole thing works. Some niche cards against them are stuff like Relic. Relic would stop their Delve stuff, but it's tough. I personally never suggest any card to stop Delve from happening unless it's like an all-in Delve build. We're not talking about Splinter Twin here. We're talking about something that's like purposefully going out of their way to Delve, so they can only use Delve cards. Then I don't suggest doing things like Relic of Progenitus. Relic of Progenitus is not so great against that Delve, because if you don't time it right, you don't stop their Delve, and there's nothing to stop them from just rebuilding their Delve cards to cast their Tassiger. So it's very win more. So let's go over some stuff. Brave the Elements is alright. It's only your creatures you control, and it's white creatures you control, so it takes a very specific deck to do it. But it stops things like bolts. Again, like Merge Unscathed stops things like bolts. That's like very all in. However, if I would probably never put in Haro, but it's a chance. If you don't have Path to Exile, you're running 2 of in your main board because you're like a Gruul Zoo or something. Put in more. Put in more because it stops Twin. That's definitely one of the better cards you can do to stop Twin here. Let's keep going. What else we got? If you're playing a all-in, no, not all-in, but if you're playing a domain zoo, then of course you have your Spell Pierce, Stubborn Denial, Swan Song, Unified Will, decks, cards that you can play against them. It's not going to guarantee you the win, but it's there if they're rushing against you, backed with your clock. If they're very, 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 very tempo twin, then Grim Lavamancer is alright. If they're not tempo twin, Grim Lavamancer is not very good. Grim Lavamancer on the flip end can be used in tandem with bolts to kill off Deceiver Exarch. So if you are a burn zoo, like a very heavy burn type of zoo, which has been doing well on online, then Grim Lavamancer becomes suddenly better because it can be used with other things to kill off their combo pieces. By all means, though, your best form of burn against Twin is the newly presented Rending Volley card. Rending Volley is pretty much just better in every form or sake, especially with things like Siege Rhino getting played less. There's another card which we'll get to that used to be played, Combust. It used to be played before Rending Volley, but now Rending Volley exists. There's no reason not to just use Rending Volley. On the flip end, I think I skipped it by accident. Wear Tear is good. Wear Tear is good against them because sometimes they'll bring in a Spell Skite against you, and if you Wear Tear and you fuse them, you can get yourself a nice little 1-2 combo of destroying the Twin and also destroying the Spell Skite. Not to mention, Spell Skite can't redirect the Wear Tear, especially like if you only cast it as Tear, it can't redirect it. And even if you fuse it, they can't redirect it because it'll say destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment. You've already targeted the Spell Skite with that spell, so it can't be targeted again. Not to mention you can't change the target anyways because it's not an enchantment. I mean, it can theoretically use all your life if you want to with a spell skate, but I'm getting into the nitty gritty here, and I don't even need to get into the nitty gritty, so let's skip that out of here. We're gonna bring in one of my favorite niche cards to bring in against Twin, just because every time I cast it in person on people, and I go like, all right, you can't combo off now. They go, Judge, that doesn't seem appropriate. Vines of Astwood does not give a creature hexproof. That is important. Hexproof was not a keyword yet, so it gives something that's like hexproof. It's called Troll Shout. Target creature you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control till end of turn. So what you do is you cast it for 1 mana. You do not kick it. I mean, you can kick it, but you don't kick it if you want them not to get that 4/4. So just don't kick it. And you have now made their creature unable to be targeted by spells or abilities that your opponent controls. That means their own control. Twin targets when it's cast. It's an aura. So it targets, and it then dies. Simple as that. It can't be casted. It's an illegal target, and it fizzles, and it goes to the graveyard. It stops them from comboing off for that turn. It is just way rare to do it, but sometimes you might have this in your sideboard against Jund or Control, and it's worth noting that you can do that. Ratchet Bomb is very narrow, but you can also use it, and what that does is you do not put any counters on it. So don't think you're going to put any counters on it to kill the Deceiver Exarch. It's not the way that you run the Ratchet Bomb. You put the Ratchet Bomb out there for 2 mana, and then you destroy it with no counters on it, and it will kill all the tokens. It'll buy you a turn, is what it does. On the flip end, Toper Orb, you just put it out there for 2 mana. That's why it's a little better against them. And it means they can't do anything with it. It stops their Deceiver Exarch and Pester Mites from being on a tempo plan, tapping down the opponent's creatures and trying to attack. It'll also stop things like Snapcaster and Deceiver Exarch. I'm sorry, Vendilion Click from being able to do anything either. So it's actually a pretty good card against Toper Orb. It's against Twin. It's Toper Orb. It's not great against anything else, so it's very niche. Let's see what else you have. Again, I don't suggest putting in any card that's that's gonna affect their stuff. Thalia is great. Affect the graveyard is what I should have said. Thalia is great. We already saw that. I don't need to get into it any more than that. Negate, again, is something if you're running blue. Unified Will, if you're running blue. Let's see what else we've got here. Combust, I don't know why you're running Combust if you're running, you should be running Rending Volley, but Combust is also an option. I'm just going to name all the options humanly possible here. Sorry if this is boring, this last bit. Trouble Flames is good because it can actually kill off their Deceiver Exarch. Eidolon the Great Revel, I'd bring it in if you had it against their sideboard too. It's just good value. At worst, they kill it and it deals 2 damage to them. At best, they were looking for their combo pieces and you've caught them with this, so you've just made them go super into red territory in order for that to happen. Let's continue to look for things. There's a couple things on the higher up. Scavenging Ooze is good against them because of the Delve. Also stops Snapcaster shenanigans. Rakdos Charm is one of those weird ones that you can get them. Rakdos Charm is mostly used for destroying an artifact and exiling stuff out of the graveyard. This is one of those rare cases where it's actually alright against Twin for one of those modes because of Spellskite or stopping them from being able to cast their Delve stuff. But the flip end is each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. You are never going to have your life lower than Twin, generally. Especially if you're running Rakdos Charm, you should just bear in mind that you don't want your life lower than them. So when they decide to make 17 twins to kill you because you're at 15 life, generally they'll add an extra couple twins in there just in case on the off weird chance you bolt one of their twins, you go down to 1 life, you swing back and kill them. They should be at like 9, 10, and Rakdos Charm is this awesome thing because before they can do anything, if they don't have a counter spell, you can cast it and kill them. You deal 17 damage with 1 spell. It's fantastic. Let's see here. This stops them if they're doing like Jeskai Charm and they've got Wrath of Gods. Sometimes they do that. This is all right against them because it allows you to put 1/1 on your creatures, which sometimes is enough to kill off Deceiver Exarch. It's not that great. Drabaka's Command is great because every single one of those modes is relevant. Prevent all damage an instant sorcery would deal. It stops all their Kolaghan commands, all their bolts, all their electrolyzed damage. Target player sacrifices an enchantment. That means they're either going to sacrifice a Blood Moon or they're going to sacrifice a Splinter Twin. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. That'll get you out of bolt range in most cases, as well as being able to get you to that magical 4 damage that you need to do in order to kill off a Splinter Twin or Kolaghan's Deceiver Exarch. Target creature fights another creature you don't control. You can usually use that to double up on something being blocked or kill off a Exarch or a Pestermite to do final stuff. Getuck Tag is one of those rare cards that you might have in your sideboard, but it won't let you. It won't let them cast a Splinter Twin. The only way they can do it is that they kill this guy or they got a Kiki Jiki. Qasali Primage kills stuff dead. That's awesome. You might have Deglamber or Ravel into Ether, whatever that's called now, the newer one. And that's fine too. It shuffles it back into their library. This is only really used if you're in a Tron meta and you got to fight against Worm Coils. So if you are in a Tron meta and you're like, oh, I need to fight against Worm Coils, but I also need to not be soft against Splinter Twin, then boom, you've got your card. Congratulations. Let's go. What else they got here? Abrupt Decay if you're playing against if you're playing with a domain deck. Going to 3 mana. There's not a ton in 3 mana. You can maybe get them with Evan Mind Sensor if they're playing a 3-color deck. Torpor Bird, otherwise known as Hushwing Grift, is Torpor Orb, but it's a bird version. So it's less good against Twin because it can die much more easily. But it could do some work. Let's see here. Further into 4 mana. There's not a ton you could do as far as once we start getting to 4 mana, 3 mana. You start realizing there's not a ton you can do against them. I used Trader's Blood a couple times back in the day when Tarmo Twin was a thing to do it. Choke, I forgot. Choke. Choke is great against them. Choke, unlike Blood Moon, kills them. They might use Blood Moon against you, but if you put down a Choke, they are in a worse situation than you are in a Blood Moon. Simple put. I've sided in Looming Shaman against them. It's very niche. It's only as if you're running Collected Company, and it allows you to stop a delve off of it. It's basically saying, all right, I'm going to pay 4 mana to Collected Company. I'm going to get myself a Pride Mage to stop you from being able to twin, and a Looming Shaman. Now you can't delve either. And it has those weird offy chances. Again, also Reclamation Sage off of things like Collected Company is all right to cast. All right, not awesome against them. Geist of St. Traft is really good if you're playing Domain because they can't really interact very well with it. Don't ever cast Doran, you'll be sad. Burning Tree Shaman is old school tech that I haven't used since Eggs stopped being a deck. But it's old school tech, and it does do something there. Fiery Justice is removal spell. It's all right. It kills stuff. Crackling Doom in response to a twin is pretty good. If they don't have anything else out. Trying to think of what else they've got. Of course, like stuff like Luxodon Smiter, if they're on their tempo play, will allow you to get Pyet and be able to start grabbing wins. Once you get to 4 mana, there's really very few things you can do that are great against them. Siege Rhino is Siege Rhino. There's nothing really else to talk about it. Thrun is really good because they've got no way to deal with it. The only problem is now Thrun gets blocked by Tassigers, so it's a lot less good. Gorklan Rampager is pretty alright depending on the situation. It's either going to be a complete blowout on your end and you're going to lose your Gorklan plus your creature, or you're going to cast it and they're going to lose their creature because of it, and still take damage. So it depends on how that works, but yeah, sometimes it's a blowout, sometimes it's a blowout on your end. The last card I wanted to get into note, and it's probably the last card that you you are going to need to even consider to bring it in. It's super niche. Is active aggression. Active aggression is a little bit different. I used it again. I upgraded my Trader's Blood with active aggression to beat Tarmo Twin. Because Tarmo Twin had a lot of things where even active aggression would let me take a Tarmogoyf and finish them off with it. That should be its main reasoning. The other thing is because it's instant rather than not being instant, you can actually steal a creature while they attack and force both of them to block, and sometimes it counts as a 2-for-1 removal spell at that point. But it has a weird, tiny quirk which makes it even slightly modern playable. It wouldn't be pretty much modern playable at all without this quirk, which is because it's instant. Now remember that one game we talked about how Splinter Twin has that funny little word text that says until next end step? You can go ahead and they go turn 3 at the end of turn. I'm going to go ahead and cast a Deceiver Exarch. Now the Deceiver Exarch is in play. Turn 4, I'm going to cast Splinter Twin on it. And they're tapped out. And they think they've got the game pretty much won with their oops, I win button. And you go, hold up. Instant speed. Going to cast active aggression. I'm going to target your Deceiver Exarch. So remember, on the stack, you've got the casting of the Splinter Twin targeting the Deceiver Exarch, and now you have active aggression on top of that. So active aggression will resolve. You get your Splinter Twin. I'm sorry, you get your Deceiver Exarch. Splinter Twin then resolves because the target's not illegal. You can still cast an aura on an opponent's creature if that's clear, and it resolves, giving you Splinter Twin and their Deceiver Splinter Twin enchanted onto a Deceiver Exarch on their turn. Now you're like, well, how is that? That's just buys you a turn. That's all it does. No. You wait until the end step. And then with this on the stack, because it's going to go back to them now, right? It says game till end of turn. With this on the trigger on the stack, you go ahead and you tap your Deceiver Exarch to make 1,000,000 copies of Splinter Twin on their end step, and then make sure the last trigger that you do for that Splinter Twin is not on on the Deceiver Exarch. It's on, like, I don't know, a mountain or something. And you untap a mountain. So that way, they have it tapped. When you give it back, it's tapped. They can't do anything with it. And because Splinter Twin's tokens don't exile until next end step, you untap with 1,000,000 tokens, and you swing for the win. That is one of the few ways that you can go ahead and kill them with their own card with active aggression. And let me tell you something, it is the greatest feeling in the world to kill a Twin player with that. And they will call Judge, and they will be very angry at you afterwards. But that is a way to do it. So that being said, those are generally all your cards that you can use to combat Twin. There's a couple other niche things you can do, like blow up their land with a Molten Rain or Boom Bust or something. A couple of other stuff you could do with it. But that's overall the best stuff that you can use to cast against Splinter Twin, and some stuff that's not even the best things in the world, but there are options to keep in mind. This video has gone on for like an hour. It is way longer than my normal matchup videos are ever, but I really wanted to stress how to beat Splinter Twin with Zoo, because I know that Splinter Twin has always, since Modern has been a thing, been one of the top decks you can play in Modern. So, that being said, I hope you and I wish you good luck in beating Twins in the face. It's actually a pretty good matchup for you, so long as you play it correctly. So I hope this was enough to educate you for that, or maybe even give you some refresher points, or maybe you even learned a couple weird tricks that you didn't know that you were going to get. Rate, comment below, like it, subscribe if you want to see more matchup videos. I'm saying, like, what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to find random matchups. It's going to be all after the fact and not live, which kind of sucks, but that's the best way that I can filter through the crap decks that I'm going to play in my spare time versus, like, the good ones that I want to show off. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And remember, as always, your animals are hungry. Make sure you feed them animals. Thank you, bye.